we as artists work a lot longer than 9 to 5. It's like 24/7 because we're always thinking of stuff. And I want a little bit of compensation for that, may I ask, just a little bit.
For 40 years. And this guy's album, we're all under the artist Brian Woodbury, and there was just one guy. But wait a minute, there's two of us. So
Hi, this is Terry Draper from Class 2.
Hey, this is Paul Chastain.
I'm Brendan O'Hare. I used to be in Teenage Fan Club.
Vic from Star Collector.
Bone Rat.
Jim Terrell.
Josh Bradley.
Paul Collins of the Nerves, the Breakaways, and the Beat.
I'm Frankie Siragusa, and you're tuning in to Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Show with Vinyl Man Jeb.
Let's just have a chat down here.
You're listening to Mad Wasp Radio.
Ow! Hey everybody, this is your host Vinyl Man Jeb with Brian Woodbury here. He has a brand new album, I was told through Glass Onyon, Billy, which is cool. It's coming out on July 25th. We're really excited for this one. We'll get right into the name and everything as we go on about the episode. But Brian, how are you?
Very good. How are you, Jeb?
Good. Excited to be here. Just having a lot of fun, doing a lot of interviews lately, more than I've done before, because Glass Onyon was like, hey, we want to add you to our roster for radio hosts. And I was like, let's do it. It'd be a lot of fun. So we started doing those and getting into it and caught up to having you. So very excited.
I'm very glad you have me too.
So I usually start off all my guests with, and we'll get into your new album as well, and we'll get into all this stuff, but I want to start off on a simple same ground for everybody. What got you into music?
What got me into music? Well, I was a very little kid, years and years ago. My parents used to play this one record that was a Don Giovanni of Mozart, Mozart opera. And for some reason, I was really obsessed with this record when I was like 3, and I would pretend to sing along. I had no idea what they were talking about. I always thought they were talking about cabbages and lettuce, but I would just kind of imitate the songs, and then I always sort of gravitated toward music from that. So, I played music from a very early age. The Beatles were the thing that inspired me and 400 million other people, no doubt, to play guitar.
Well, they had a lot of power too. The Beatles had so much power from back then. I've learned from interviewing Joey Molland of Badfinger and learning all these different things about those bands. The Beatles was like that pure energy.
Yeah, it's trite, but it's they're undeniable,
right? And I see you got the banjo and the mando behind you, so as well as knowing you're a multi-instrumental composer as well, so I can see that kind of stemmed from there.
I'm not really a banjoist or a mandolinist because I write for those instruments, and occasionally I play them, and often I have other people play them. So I want to figure out if I'm having them play something that's actually possible on the instrument.
Gotcha.
If it's just barely possible, then I'll make them play it.
You're like, I could barely do it, so you can do it. I like that. And I actually didn't realize I knew a lot of your work from when I was a kid, from Bear in the Big Blue House, which was something awesome. I was always excited about when I was younger, and one of my friends is a big fan too. And it's just something I remember. I love Jim Henson. I love the Muppets. I knew that was one of the later shows that was his company more than him, of course. Yeah. But how did that come about? How did getting to work on that show?
That came about. I was living in New York at the time, and I was performing solo stuff and performing a lot with my band, the Popular Music Group. And I met a guy named David Yazbek, who's a Broadway composer now. He was working on, he was doing some kids stuff at the time, and he recommended me to some people. And I was hired to write songs for the show, right sort of at the beginning of when that show was first coming out.
To the Blue House.
Hello from the small mouse.
Things to do.
Fun for you.
Howdy from the big bear. Want some fun?
Here's where.
Just for you.
All is new in the House of Blue. Lots of room at our house.
Catch the moon at our house.
Kitchen's here.
Bathroom's there. Attic full of stuff here.
Pillows full of fluff here. Just for you in the House of Blue. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Big Blue House. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Big Blue House. Door is open. Come on in.
Now you're here.
So let's begin.
I've worked with a lot of people that I met through the show, musicians. One of my longtime collaborators, Peter Lurie, was the actual music supervisor on that show when I first started. I'd wanted to sort of get into TV at the time. I hadn't done any TV pretty much, but at that time I'd done like one jingle. But I thought, I thought the kids stuff was fun. And then shortly after that, I had kids, so it was kind of cool writing kids' music while I was, being a parent of young kids, and they were sort of the age that the show was geared toward.
Yeah, it became kind of part of like knowing what you're making music for and realizing that there's actually like a reflection for it. So that becomes really cool. And was that one of your first major projects? Being that you mentioned that was like you did a couple jingles, but was that like one of the first major ones?
That was the first big TV thing I'd done. I'd done lots of grandiose projects of my own pet projects.
There you go.
But yeah, no, that was my first sort of big TV thing, and I've done a few others since then, a number of.
What's been like a big inspiration for you as of late?
A big inspiration? Well, honestly, I tend to be pretty productive, so I give myself deadlines for things. I have lots of ideas all the time, either coming up with titles to songs or just little musical bits or just concepts. So I like to give myself deadlines, and what I've done in these projects that we're about to talk about, I've done over the pandemic, is I gave myself 4 albums to make, each one in a different musical mood.
Oh, wow.
So basically my inspiration was I got to fill up these albums with songs, so I had to accumulate song ideas, and each album had to have its own sort of musical personality. So inspiration, I always feel like I use the analogy that's like a water faucet. Turn it on and it'll just, keep coming as long as you want it.
And then you can turn it off with the stress that comes with turning it off, because you're like, I wish I could take a break, but I can't, So it's
and I vary it around too. I write different styles of music, but I also write, I make videos too. I make music videos.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I recently got into watching a lot more music videos because we had Kevin Godley from 10cc on our show recently.
How
and
awesome.
It was great. A lot of fun, thanks to Billy as well. And it was just such a fun experience because I never expected to have someone that worked with Paul McCartney on his music video. I mean, everybody from the realm. If MTV didn't exist, he would have been MTV. So it was like, it was really fun. I'm in the same boat of having to put in place boundaries to when I could do stuff and timing. And then, of course, the faucet is such a good analogy for that, is that all of a sudden a song will come to me and I'm sitting there writing an album in the middle of a night when I'm like, I just want to sleep. I just want to relax because I have so much going on. But it's just, do you have any advice for musicians that deal with the pressure of wanting to write all the time and not being able to take breaks?
I force myself to take breaks, and I try to finish up my day by around 6.
Okay.
If I'm really on a roll, I let myself go till 9. But if I go past 9, I'll be up all night. And I'm an early riser, so I get up like 5:30 or 6 and just start working.
You and I are very similar with the working patterns. I find myself having to schedule on this. I use this app Trello where I can schedule my day out with what's the most important task to the least important, and then
wise.
If I have to move it, I'm like, I get annoyed, but I'm like, wait, I can't do 70 things in one day. I have to. Yeah. You get to visualize it, so it's a little easier to say, okay, I need to take a break, but it's tough. I have a hard time taking breaks I think I'll come with my age. I'll start to learn. I'm only 22, but I've been doing these interviews since I was 17, and I'm always on the fly. Just go, 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 go. And then I'll realize I've gotten to the point where my body is trying to catch up with what's been going on, and it's like extremely hard.
Yeah, it'll catch up with you eventually.
Hopefully. But we'll move right into your album now. We talked about the different volumes of it, so I didn't even realize it was a volume thing, which is very cool, like kind of challenge for yourself. Did you find a struggle trying to get those themes together for the Rhapsody and Filigree setup, like the series of albums?
The whole series is called Anthems and Antithets.
Oh, okay.
And it was actually suggested by a friend of mine because I've put out a lot of albums, and a lot of them will go from one sort of tone to another. I'll have like a serious song, and then I'll have a angry political song, and then I'll have like something very silly. So it'll go from like serious to silly to. I enjoy that. I enjoy going back and forth in that sort of frame of mind. Like, oh, now he's being sincere about himself, and now he's pretending to be an idiot and mocking himself. So, I like that, but I think it can be confusing to people, to listeners sometimes. If you're listening to the whole album, maybe it's not confusing to me, but I made it. So I thought I like to do funny songs. So I did the first volume, which is called Levity and Novelty, and it's all like funny novelty. And then the second one was more like serious, personal, like story songs, not always about me, but songs about people. And they're not all weepy, but they're all like about personal type things. And that one's called Balladry and Soliloquy. And then the third one was like all the political stuff and all the pissed off stuff and all the sort of curious politics stuff. That's called Antipathy and Ideology. And then the other thing I really like to do is kind of, really esoteric, weirdo, arty songs. So that's what this one, the new one's all about.
And that's the one I heard most of all, and that's the one that that Billy sent me, and I was feeling the Zappa vibe. I was feeling the Brian Wilson Smile era vibe, and I love all that stuff. So I definitely was feeling that, and I was just like, oh, I love this. And there was a couple songs I picked out as well, which we'll get into. But I didn't even realize it was a volume thing, which makes it even more exciting. I have more to go through now. So
I wanted to try to do it over 1 year, but it ended up taking a long time to. I did the first 3 in 2020, and then it took me a long time to finish this one because this one was a little more involved. So this one is finally coming out on July 25th.
Which is only a few days from now. We got 5 days.
Just next week. So, and I should say also that they're chock full of music. They're all like 75 plus minutes long. So they're really like double albums. And so I really, really... you get your bang for your buck when you listen to this.
Really? Yeah. I imagine, like, when I looked over, I was like, oh, usually albums get sent and they're like 10 to 12 songs, and they're good. There's nothing wrong with that. But I always love, when I do storytelling in my work, I love doing 23-song albums. And, everybody's like, how do you do this? I'm like, I would not like being able to split those things up. As my next question actually was already answered, which was perfect, which was the concept behind this album. Now we're learning that there's multiple concepts. So, guys, you have a lot to learn from here. So we're going to move into the songs that I picked from Volume 4, since that's the one I've been listening to. And I wanted to, which is perfect. I really wanted to get into, like, I have 3 songs listed. We could do more, of course. There's so many songs on the album, so we could do much more. And one of them was Thesis Rex. I really wanted to get into that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Theseus Rex is based on the Greek myth of Theseus.
Okay.
So it's a real myth, whatever. But I've updated the story so that Theseus is now the bastard son of Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. So it's set. It sort of starts in the late '60s, and it follows in a very sort of mythological, heroic way.
Gotcha.
It follows the story of his mom and him as he grows up and is rejected by Jerry Garcia and wants to prove himself and learns to play the guitar. And then just when he's about to prove himself, Jerry dies. This is all completely made up. Why not choose somebody in popular culture who's got sort of a mythological status?
Definitely.
So, he ends up going to Afghanistan and sort of spying on the Taliban during the just lead up to 9/11 and ends up being mistaken for a Taliban and almost waterboarded. And so it has this big sort of tragic sweep to it. And it's the song is like prog rock. Almost it's inspired by like Genesis.
Oh, okay. I've heard that. Gabriel,
Genesis, where they would do these concept albums and everything, the whole
Lamb Lies Down on Broadway with the flower suit that Peter Gabriel used to have, and he'd come out, and I'm like, that's so cool.
And so it's like tells the story. The song is only 9 minutes long, but it's like a rock opera condensed into 9 minutes.
Rhonda's living life at a standstill, born and bred on Anaheim landfill. Help is on a Grateful Dead handbill, promising a way out of Landville. hitch up to Marin where the streams flow to the kind of landscape her dreams know. Crash in Larkspur Inns where the beams show. Fairy tale begins and it seems so easy and high. Free love, give it a try. Still underage, passes backstage. There's a hero. Jerry spots her wandering in flip-flops, buys her tie-dyes from the Hay tip shops. Rhonda takes his ride till the trip stops, spills his bong, and when the last drip drops, Drake's in the sand, a deadhead, ditched by the band. One night of sex makes the easiest wrecks.
I shall bear your son, prepare him for his role, your heir and chosen one. When he subsumes your soul, Jerry won't answer me.
From the get-go, Junior is gung-ho, with a faith in fathers the young know. Picks up Dad's guitar, all high-strung though. Soon the high and mighty are brung low. Coming of age, false hopes, turning to rage. Jerry rejects the easiest rags.
Clear the stone away, retracing Jerry's tracks. And when I've learned to play, then I'll assume his acts.
Theseus hits the stand, his grateful dead cover band plays with a nimble hand in the court of his father. When Jerry does not arrive, August of 95, turns out he's not alive. And Mountain Girl blames me. Acts on, left at loose ends, world tour of opium dens. Without a plan, Afghanistan, there's our hero.
That land is full of woe, and evil is in power. Why did you have to go? I'll wait for you each hour. I keep my head down low. Return to me someday. The drums of war are wrong. That I grow. And I will wait until the mujahideen come back.
Comrades, I'm ready to serve God's will. Just give me the nerve, Northern allies.
Hindu Kush heroin trying to recover.
Then 9/11, Uncle Sam fought for the old district where the weaker win a fight they pick. Watch them beat him with a rock and stick.
I'll get Afghanistan, I'll got it in a can. Kill me some Taliban, calling fire on the mountain.
DC is death to taste, allies are laid to waste. Worst thing he's ever faced, taking refuge in the mountain. Western armies battle the zeitgeist, massing in the name of the white Christ. Taliban are getting their fight eyes till their homes are dashed and their minds slice.
Mullah, your ass is mine, you won't be getting mine. I'll tell you like it's mine, you will sing it push for Allah.
chance is caught. He's ragged and unshod. The waterboard is brought. They think that he's jihad. He tells them of his plight, of hiding in the cave, the battles he helped fight, the brothers he helped save. And when his tale is done, they gasp at what he said, that he's the bastard son, the son of the Grateful Dead. Dude, is that really true? I did it through and through. This lightning skull tattoo says you are my hero. You'll skip Guantanamo, where you were gonna go. Man, you don't wanna know, cause you are my hero. In honor of Jerome and his white chromosome, tell mom you're coming home, cause you are my hero.
And he comes back from war into the golden light to land on native shore, all clothed in flags of white.
In cargo he has stowed, his mother lies in wait. The casket ramps unload, she misapprehends his fate. Rhonda leaps off the Golden Gate. Sometimes life delivers a cool trade, like a senseless bargain, some fool made. When it cuts both ways like a dual blade, Helen, you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. Life isn't fair, bad, bad, made on a dare. Heroes prevail, only to fail. I'm no hero. He's no hero. Rhonda, his Theseus's mom, there's Theseus, and there's like a colonel that he meets in Afghanistan, an American army colonel. And then there's and then the narrator, which is me. So the whole thing is very theatrical and full of sort of proggy, sort of lots of little sections that are almost their own song. So, but
very cool. I like that. And I just love that in the press kit it wrote about Jerry Garcia, which I also have a Jerry figure on the right there in the corner. It's like an action figure of Jerry, so it was perfect. But it was just I love the Grateful Dead ever since I was younger. Always liked the idea of these bands like the Allman Brothers, the Grateful Dead coming out and just jamming for 50 minutes nonstop. It was like, what is this? Yeah. I can get up on stage for 3 hours, but I have to have everything sectioned out by my 3-minute pop songs that I write. It's like something so fun. The next one I had on our list is We Are the Sun. Let's talk about that one.
Okay, We Are the Sun. We Are the Sun is the idea is based on, every once in a while people will say, oh, I can't wait till humans can go to other stars, other planets on other stars. That's sort of the inspiration, because it's never going to happen. It's too far away.
Yes, it's many years from now, definitely.
The technology, if we could somehow even get to light speed, it would still take 10,000 years to get to these places. Human history only goes back about 6,000 years. So this is a crazy idea. But the idea that we're always aspiring to something that's beyond our constraints, our humanity and our planet, just seemed foolish thing that I wanted to write. Not that the song was foolish, but it's got some other ideas in there too about being able to upload your mind into sort of a computer or something like that. And I think a lot of these fantasies we have about the future are really just fantasies that sort of are misleading to where we are in real life.
We'll never make it to another star. There isn't energy to get that far. We don't have time to take a trip so long. And I'm not smart enough to show you I'm not wrong. We can't upload our minds into the cloud to shoot beyond what physics has allowed. We're bound by sunlight, spirit, breath, and will. Though I'm not bright enough to prove I'm right, but still, we are the sun, we are our only sun, a beam of light to everyone. We shine all day long, all night long, all alone. The stars stare back into our distant past. Can they detect our brilliant chloroplast? Or scan the skies to find our world of blue? Would we surprise them with the things our star can do? We are the sun, we are our only sun, a beam of light to everyone. We shine all day long, all night long, all alone. Oh, don't be sad, don't go stark raving mad. Lost to the world you're not leaving or saving. You should be glad this is not a launching pad, good or bad. We are the star that you're craving. There is no future world we're bound to go. You'll never take my word for it, I know. There is no heaven for us when we die. The sun's circumference charts are real by in the sky. Oh, hear a starlight, star ray, first star we see today. Wish we might, wish we may, wish we'll wish away. We are the sun, we are our only sun, a beam of light to everyone. We shine
what I want to write the song about. And then it's also sort of an optimistic song about the fact that we're this, Earth is this kind of miraculous place, and that it's really part of the sun, and the sun is remarkable in that, it's created this planet with life, and so, so I feel in a way, we are the sun. So and then I worked with a couple of good friends of mine, Johnny Unicorn and Naomi Adele Smith. They sang the background vocals on it, and we just finished a video that's going to be premiering very soon for that song. So,
with that song, I do kind of find it funny that we always, as human beings, seem to tend to go every hour by hour. And, I remember it kind of reminded me, this is a wraparound, but it'll come back to where I was saying, like Yellow Submarine by the Beatles, the movie. They had the moment where you saw time, and you saw how long time could actually be when they physically count the time out. And you're like, whoa, I never realized that minutes, when you're thinking about it, can be so quick or so fast. Because I related to kind of like taking that deep breath in and realizing, we're just small molecules of energy on such a bigger picture, but it gets overwhelming if you go to think about the bigger picture constantly. And you have to kind of go with the battle between, are we going to be here tomorrow in your head? Because, we're just part of whatever we're doing at the moment. Or you got to go with the battle of focusing on what you want to get done today for that accomplishment of that task. And it's just so cool to see somebody that has that similar brain set and similar, I should say mindset. There we go. Towards that. And I think one of your other songs reflects in that very well, in that theme. And I go right into this one now as I was looking back at the album. The other Brian Woodbury. I mean, that's a cool concept. Let's hear about that one.
Okay, so that one came about very sort of in a really funny way. A couple of years ago, I was Googling myself, as one does. At least if you have the name Brian Woodbury. If your name is John Smith, you probably don't Google yourself.
It'd be too many results.
Just to see what. And there was this other musician making music, putting out a record, and I was like, wait a minute. The sort of irritating thing was on Spotify, on YouTube, both my albums for the last, I've been putting out for 40 years, and this guy's album were all under the artist Brian Woodbury, and there was just one guy. But wait a minute, there's two of us. So I contacted him. I got in touch with him, and I said, do you know anything about this? Why is our stuff being confused? And here's the other thing. I'm very opinionated about music. I often don't like a lot of stuff. So I thought, my sort of default reaction to things is, I probably won't like this. But, I listened to his stuff, and immediately I thought it was great. He's like a jazz trombonist, kind of does, I guess you'd call it kind of postmodern jazz. Ooh. And, nice, interesting stuff. About 15 years ago, I put out an album of instrumental jazz music with large ensemble, 17-piece band. It was just stuff that I'd written. So you could possibly, mistake, if you're familiar with that project that I did called the Variety Orchestra, you'd think, oh, Brian's got a thing where he's got a trombone player, and it's like, no, it's a different guy.
Know thyself, that's what somebody once said. To get wisdom and to get ahead. So I searched myself on Google, that is. Now I don't know what is myself or his. There's a guy who has my name, a guy who isn't me. He makes music, which is a shame, 'cause I make music. Now you see where this whole thing is going to. Since our name's the same, no way of knowing who it is gonna be. Me or the other Brian Woodbury. That other guy who took my name, I had it long before. Hey, I won't let him usurp my fame. If he persists, then this is war. 'Cause I'm the prior Brian here. Hey, would you mind? He should cede his claim to me, the pioneer. I deserve You'd think one was enough. While he gets knocks for what I do, I get credit for his stuff. This name not terribly uncommon, both first and last, onto which he's glomming. No nom de plume for him, so I'm bombing this homonym. Bad homonym. Why'd he have to go and get the moniker I got? There's plenty better ones, I bet, yeah, and he could have the lot. I blame this same lame name phenomenon on some dumb humdrum whim of mom and dad saddling me with this bad homonym. Ad homonym. That other guy who stole my name, he's not my evil twin. No alter ego I try to tame, no avatar I hide within, no doppelganger ding-a-ling. But when the web takes aim, we start commingling till you can't unpin me from the other Brian Woodbury. We are joined up for eternity. Gee, I hope there's not a number 3 for me and the other Brian Woodbury.
So how can we separate? How can we? So of course we tried to get in touch with Spotify and YouTube and
the fun.
And these are and doing getting in touch with these streaming places they're kind of impenetrable. So there's really not a lot you can. I mean, I'm sure there's something you can do, but it's not easy to.
It's hard to find. It's like the deep web
these things.
to try to get a hold of these people. Yeah.
So we said, well, wouldn't it be funny if we just wrote a song together? That would really confuse the algorithm. And so that was just a joke. But then, I thought, why don't we actually do it? So I came up with this concept, and I asked the other Brian Woodbury if he wanted to write a song called The Other Brian Woodbury. So the song is actually about me being confused, finding myself mixed up with this other guy and him finding himself mixed up with me. And so he co-wrote it with me and did a lot of the arrangement on the trombones. He plays like 16 trombones on it.
That's cool.
So, and he's been a great guy to work with. And then I ended up like having him play on like 4 other songs on the album. So
it became a positive. That's awesome.
So it's really great. So anyways, it's like a kind of a comic, kind of jazzy song.
Yeah.
But it's got some, it's got a little instrumental section that goes pretty out and then comes back.
Find a story that was kind of similar when I started using Bandcamp. My name is Jeb musically. It's Jebb. And, a lot of people usually it's just Jeb or it's just, and that name is actually an acronym of my real name and Beatles boy. So I've been a Beatles. My dad came up with that when I was like really young. So it became like my trademark and I can't change it for the life of me. It became everything. And it just became something that I wasn't ready just to go, okay, I gotta go pick another name now. But I was there for a while. So it doesn't look like, this guy came a little later. And it was just funny that you know, I decided to just make my name Jeb's Music. So it's defined as a different concept. It's its own thing, and then people can find it because it's not by somebody else. But my buddy, my co-writer, who I do a lot of songs with, was like, you should meet up with the other Jeb and do Jeb featuring Jeb. But look, Brian Woodbury already did it. He did Brian featuring Brian, and that's really cool. You know what? It could be a positive thing if you're open-minded to. I'm very opinionated too. Sometimes I get cold feet when I listen to things or get sent stuff, and the radio host added kind of to it. The getting 100+ emails, it even without even looking, it wears you down. And I gotta find a way to, like, I think I'm gonna take the Unlikely Places email off my phone and just put it on the computer and designate a time to when I look at it, because it really adds to my day. I didn't even realize a lot of stress, because I want to listen to everybody. I'm a musician too, so I want to hear everybody. But at the time, it's just not humanly possible to listen to 100 million songs and have the same ear for every single one. Exactly. And it's like, wow, I've learned a lot as a radio host. So, and then people get upset if they don't get played, and I understand that. I'm like, I get it. It's the passion. So then I'll check the song out a second time when they send this, the second email. So hint, guys, send me like 5 times your email. Please don't. Please don't. I will not respond. That'll be deleted at that point. But the next song I had on the list here, which I love by just the name itself, was The Day the Music Never Died, which is very cool. Spin on the title there. So what's that one about?
Yeah. That one is, okay, in 1829, Felix Mendelssohn was a young composer. He's like 20 years old. He presented a concert where they played J.S. Bach's St. Matthew's Passion. Oh, wow. And that was a piece Bach had died 80 years before. And in those days, they didn't play old classical music. When they would do concerts, they would play the thing that they had written for the concert, for the most part. And Bach was, maybe known in his hometown, but not he wasn't famous the way he became. But the musicians who were familiar with his music thought, oh, this guy is amazing. We have to. So they did a concert in 1829, and that sort of is officially that is considered the start of classical music. Not that people weren't making concert, that kind of serious concert music before it, but that was the point at which they started playing music of the past from previous eras. And nowadays, of course, classical music is, it's music from the 1700s and the 1800s and the, early 20th century, whatnot. But it's all, the past is a huge part of what classical music is, to the point that, there were people at the time thinking, why we shouldn't play this old stuff. We should only focus on the new. So ever since this sort of happened, there's been this tension in classical music between the old and the new.
Bach was very dead, his cantatas all ignored. His passions had been sung and long forgotten with the harpsichord, till they brought him back on stage to take one last Concertgebouw, and dropped him in the pantheon which we're still living under now. The day the music never died, the old beat out the new. The classics now don't have to go when their composers do. And everyone knows all the grace this Western canon says. 'Cause they're the masters, we're the slaves. The future world was shoved aside. The day the music treasures built to last. Our golden oldies broke the moldies, relics from an unsurpassed past. And while this universal art no longer moves your average bloke, it is unchanged, imperious, it's serious. Those recent genres are just a joke. The day the music never died, the world was made to wait. The hottest trends of yore now bore no expiration date. The great 3Bs have no more hits to churn out from their graves. But they're the masters, we're the slaves. The classics could not be denied. The day the music never died. The day the music never died. History is the river we all swim in. High water marks we rate our present by. The current where we play could one day wash us all away. And so we've built a levee, but the levee is dry. The day the music never died, we yielded to the old. To all be crushed by footsteps we would walk in, we were told. And all that's new must now compete with what drew bygone rays. A sumptuous feast, we're force-fed till it's all the blue-haired public craves. And who are the masters, who are the slaves? When tried and true beats the new untried, if it's familiar, let it slide. Irrelevant and mummified. The day the music never died. The day the music never died. The day the music never died.
And I think it's replicated in all forms of music and all styles of music. You know,
Oh, yeah.
there's the impulse to keep and preserve the great stuff of the past, and then there's this impulse to be like, let's do something that's now that comes
Yeah.
from where we are now. So, and you know, I feel that. So that's what the impetus for the song was. And then I thought, I'm writing a song about classical music, so I should try to make it in a completely unclassical music style. So I thought, do kind of an indie pop, They Might Be Giants type of song, with a kind of, hooky chorus. I mean, I don't know if it's really a hooky chorus because it changes key practically every bar, but it's that kind of poppy thing about the day the music never died.
Yeah, and it's a nice, way that people could see it, like myself possibly, and go, oh, I know the line, the day the music died from, Don McLean, but it's a good way of saying that it's a little different, too. It's keeping the old, preserving the old in that way, but it's also preserving the old with the sense of somebody reads that and goes, hey, I kind of get that. Like, I'm going to check that, because my brain is telling me I've heard this phrase before, but it's also you haven't. It's a, play on words. We as artists work a lot longer than 9 to 5. It's like 24/7 because we're always thinking of stuff. And I want a little bit of compensation for that. May I ask? Just a little bit. Another song I wanted to go right into because I really enjoyed this one, and I thought it had a funny twist to it. So I want you to explain it. And it's very short. It's the shortest one on the album, I think. Is the honorable mention.
Okay, the honorable mention is it's like the internal monologue of a guy who's winning an Academy Award, and at the end he finds out he's mistaken. He didn't actually win, but that was inspired by when people win these awards, they say, "Oh, I'm so humbled," and that word does not mean humble doesn't mean what they think it means, or at least it didn't when I was growing up. So humbled seemed like the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just started as a goof, kind of making fun of that. But then musically, I got really it had sort of a different musical genesis, in that it was inspired by this album by Blake Mills and Pino Palladino.
I'm so humble, I'm humiliated. The fact we can't share this award, oh man, I really hate it. But to you, my brilliant fellow nominees, I submit, surrender, bow, I get down on my knees. Then to each one on my team, I pledge my eternal servitude. Couldn't do it without you, though I take the golden statue. You deserve it too. Moving on to those who stuck with me, I'm honored by how true you are. I'd like to thank you all by name, but you know who you are. To all my fans and Insta followers, thank you for it. Wasn't me, I would go on, but wait, who won? It wasn't me.
I think those are their names.
I like the names.
They put this record out of maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it had this really, really cool vibe. It was kind of like jazzy, but it just had this incredibly cool vibe, and I kind of copped it. But then I did I took in a really different direction. Then I put these background vocals on the song, so it's singing along with me, kind of sort of echoing what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And my friend Kathy Funston did these amazing. I wrote these very, very difficult 3-part harmonies. Very sort of close harmony where she's like singing seconds apart from the other part, and she nails it. She's amazing. So it's a very quirky kind of. It's a very silly kind of lyric, but the music is kind of cool and quirky.
And I enjoyed it. That was one of the ones, I think it was in the press kit, where they wrote about like that kind of thing. And I thought it was so cool to have something where it's a different spin on it. And it just kind of reminds me of like the moments you overthink things or want to be the best at it. And it also kind of reminded me of Bonzo Dog Band in the sense of what song was the me, Mr. The show I'm a Fabulous Guy. I love Vivian. And it reminded me of that kind of stuff. And I'm going to be killed because like I love Bonzo and I can't think of it's the one where he's like in the room getting ready, prepping, and he thinks he's this big deal.
Right.
And then he's nothing. He's a nothing, which was always their kind of thing, where they're bigger than we have that ego about us, and we have that self-ego that our ego is there to protect us, but if indulged at too many points, you tend to forget you're actually human at times, because the ego, it inflates, it deflates. It's a protector, but it could easily be a destroyer too, which I always thought. It's funny that the shortest song on the album here gave me the most thinking points, which I think that's a nice takeaway in life, that sometimes the less is more. But no, this album is fantastic. I can't wait for the world to hear it in 5 days. I'm very excited. And it's not usually my genre, which makes me a bigger fan, because it's something I could pick up on and be like, it's not my usual, but I'm very open-minded to it, and now I'm enjoying it. And I recently got into Will Wood as well around the same time, and I'm a very big fan of him. If you haven't heard Will Wood yet, I would check him out.
No, I don't know him.
He's like a My Chemical Romance meets this avant pop type thing. So it's like it's very satire-y, but it's also, he has a song called White Noise I just played on my show, and it's very good. And I could see putting you in a block with him as well, and like being able to mix the two, so it will work on the show. But also, we each to their own, shine their own way. But I enjoy Will Wood, so I always like to share with the guests of artists that I find similar, or but not in a way of comparing, just in a way of like, you might like him,
Yeah,
but
I'll check it out. I always want to hear some
It's
stuff.
he's very
I
popular
listened
all
to
of a sudden
one of your
too.
playlists and heard some great stuff on it.
Oh, thank you.
Stuff that I've written down that I want to.
Awesome. That's the best part that a radio host would love to hear is that they gave, because that's the whole point of some of our shows. One of my buddies, that's a brand new host on Mad Wasp, we actually just hung out last night and did some karaoke, and it was kind of cool being in person with somebody. It's just been so long, and it was just nice to have that, you know, just hanging out with a friend that I haven't hung out with in a while because of college and just knowing, and been a while. And I mentioned to him, I said, your show today, which I don't usually listen to a lot of the funk side of music, and I mean I love funk, but I only listened to certain groups, and I kept in that tight-knit thing. I said, it opened my mind. He goes, that's the whole point of my show. I said, well, you won me over. I said, I will listen to your show. Because as a radio host, I tend to, a lot of people don't want to admit it, but I feel like when you work in the field of music, you either get burnt out so you don't listen to a lot of music because you think it's a job, and you kind of forget to listen to other people's stuff because you're like, I'd rather be making right now. I can make something. And you forget that the reflection part, personally for myself, is part of that process. You got to hear what's going on to know what might inspire you. And whenever I get writer's block, I decide, all right, well, here it is. I'm just going to go listen to some music until I get something. That's been my cure for it. And I think that works for authors too. Oh, cool.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm finding I'm pretty stuck lately.
You got to keep your ear open to what's going on, even if it's nothing like what you want to do.
You have to go out of your comfort zone a lot in the music field, I think.
Yeah, it just keeps it's inspiring.
Yeah, it's definitely. Well, I find myself like writing songs all of a sudden, and because like lyrics always pop in my head. I have like these. I was been told that it's like the Brian Wilson thing, where you have like the voices in your head that kind of give you ideas, but they also like crush you. And I have that, and I had to talk to a friend about it because I haven't told anybody, and he's like, "That's the bug. That's the music bug. That's the writer's bug." I have to deal with this because the white noise, and that's why the Will Wood song was so important to me because it's called White Noise. It literally covers that subject in a satirical, funny way, and it was like because he's very Zappa-esque too, so I like anything Zappa-esque to that I enjoy, and with this one it was just so exciting to hear someone make fun of the idea of the white noise in your head becoming voices to tell you how to do what you need to do and dictate what you need to do, and I deal with that on a daily basis at 22, and I'm like, I can't seem therapy is one thing and meds are another story, and it's just so tough to find the help, especially when you're a creative, because you feel like everybody just wants to squash you. And it's like, that's not the truth sometimes. Sometimes you do need to be squashed for a few to regain somewhat of normalcy. And it's so tough for me at 22 to find this. But it's nice to hear that I'm not alone. A lot of people suffer from it.
Probably a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, so it's exciting. And again, I've learned, to organize my day, and to organize is very important when you do a lot. Because you could do a lot. You can fit a lot of things in and still be comfortable. You just have to find the puzzle piece to make it all work. So this album has been really inspiring for me to see that someone could take ideas. So again, really, Brian Woodbury, I'm glad that you were able to come on the show because it's just so much fun to listen to something new.
It was great talking to you.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep in contact. I'd like to know what's coming up. We'll have you on the show again in the future, give it some time, and then we'll have, I'm sure you'll have many new projects I'd love to talk about. And it's unlikely places. So it's where things aren't as likely, right?
Been up here lighting up the sky.
Luna, do you have time to sing a goodbye song before you go?
Always there.
Hey, this was really fun.
We hope you liked it too.
Seems like we've just begun when suddenly we're through. Goodbye, goodbye, good friends, goodbye. 'Cause now it's time to go. But hey, I say, well, that's okay.
'Cause we'll see you very soon, I know.
Very soon, I know. Goodbye, goodbye, good friends, goodbye.
Goodbye.
And tomorrow, just like today, the moon, the bear, and the big blue house will be waiting for you to come and play. Come and play, to come and play. Bye now.
You're tuned into Mad Wasp Radio, so don't forget where you are. Don't change that dial, you don't need to